The land was broken, cracked beneath a sky that no longer wept, its silence filled with the groan of forgotten things. Rivers dragged themselves across the surface, heavy with ash and memory. The creatures that remained had no names, only shapes born from fear and rot. And into this came thunder. Raijin arrived not like a comet, but like judgment. His descent lit the horizon, and where he landed, the ground shook and the darkness pulled back. With him came order, clarity, and the sound of things long dormant. His drum was his voice, and with every strike, shadows dissolved, melted, or fled. Trees stirred, water cleared, light returned in pieces. Then came the wind. Fujin swept down in spirals, unseen and unhindered. Where he moved, dust scattered. His presence was wild, restless. His gusts twisted through the air like dancers. Some of the shadows recoiled, others bent, but did not break. Together, the brothers moved through ruined villages and crumbling groves. The people who hid in the rubble watched from behind stones and broken beams. They feared the thunder, but they bowed to it. They admired the wind, but they did not follow it. And yet, in the beginning, there was harmony. One storm with two forces. Fujin's winds cleared the way for Raijin strikes. In the wide canyons where corruption bloomed thickest, they moved in rhythm. Gust and roar, flash and silence. Whole forests cleansed. Rivers revived. Towns rebuilt from ashes and given light. In one village, high in the cliffs, the corruption had taken root inside the stone itself. The air was thick with it, nearly solid. Raijin could not reach it. His strikes echoed but could not break through. Fujin entered alone, weaving wind through narrow alleys, forcing the rot to the surface. Then Raijin struck, and the stone cracked open like a shell, releasing a howl that was not a sound. When it was done, the villagers knelt. Not just to one, but to both. For a moment, Fujin believed this was how it would always be. Raijin's work was quiet. He did not speak. He struck with purpose, and the sky answered him. Clouds opened. Rain returned. Once, beside a dead grove, he knelt in the dirt and placed his palm to the earth. A hum traveled out from him. Rain began to fall. A leaf, small and luminous, unfolded in the light. Fujin saw this. He had arrived just moments too late. He saw the people gathering, saw the way they looked at his brother, not with fear, but with reverence. He said nothing. But something coiled in his chest. He turned more quickly than he had come. In the mountains they rested. Stones cracked beneath their weight. The sky above them wide and breathless. Raijin sat and polished his drum in silence. Fujin paced the edge, wind circling him in tight, invisible spirals. Not a breeze stirred beyond his reach. There were no thanks. Not to him. No bowed heads, no whispered prayers. Only the sound of Raijin's name carried on the breath of those they had saved. He had given no less. He had fought, risked, endured. He had carved paths through the dark that Raijin could walk. And yet, the people saw only thunder. They remembered the light, not the breath that carried it. Fujin began to wonder, was his role lesser? Was his offering unseen? Did the world know only thunder? In the final valley, the last of the darkness rose. It came like a tide spiraling up from the bones of the earth. The creatures screamed without mouths, trailing rot across the sky. For the first time, the brothers hesitated. The ground itself shifted beneath them. The sky dimmed, heavy with old sorrow. Raijin moved forward, lightning rippling across the broken plain. Fujin beside him, wind slicing in controlled fury. They struck as one. At first, it was like before, two forces intertwined, pushing back the black. But as the battle thickened, Raijin began to move faster. His blow struck deeper. The shadow staggered from Fujin's gusts, but fell to Raijin's thunder. The rhythm broke. Fujin pushed harder. His winds grew wild. They tore banners from poles, stones from walls. The enemy trembled, but did not fall, not by his hand. Raijin broke the center. One strike and the sky split open. The creatures wailed, scattered, and died. When the last shadow fell, there was no celebration, only stillness. They walked to the sacred hollow, the place of return. Here the earth was untouched. Flowers moved in spirals, and the grass glowed beneath the feet of those allowed to rest. Raijin entered alone. The rites began. He removed his mantle, laid down his drum. His body dimmed, not in weakness, but in reverent surrender. The storm was ending. For now, Fujin watched. He did not move. The thunder was quiet. The light rising. The final breath before rest. And still, no voice called Fujin's name. He stepped into the grove. Silent. Without wind, he approached his brother, who knelt with eyes closed, hands open, chest bare, trusting. Fujin loosed the clasp at his side. A blade of air formed, sharp and thin, and he struck. The wind passed cleanly through. Raijin opened his eyes once. No resistance, only understanding. Then he fell. The light that had begun to rise from him flickered, then vanished. Fujin stood above the broken drum. The grove did not move. The flowers did not sway. The grass dimmed. From beyond the trees, the shadows returned, not to fight, not to flee, but to gather. They bowed, and Fujin, who had once been the wind, found that the air no longer moved. The thunder was gone, and nothing stirred. He thought he had been overlooked. He thought he had been denied. He thought the wind could lead. But even thunder must fall silent to be heard.